Next, with Florida Congressman and Army veteran, National Guardsman, Michael Waltz, member of the House Armed Services Committee. Congressman, welcome back.
Thanks, Shannon.
So that's the readout on the call from the White House side of things, from the president's Twitter account and further from the White House. There are some reports tonight that a Ukrainian official said the call did not go well. The White House is pushing back against that. But what do you make of our relationship with Ukraine and where things stand tonight?
Well, it's an incredibly tense and difficult situation. On the one hand, President Zelensky, I think rightly, doesn't want to cause a panic and doesn't want to cause the collapse of his government, which is exactly what Putin wants to happen. Through this type of intimidation, through this type of psychological warfare, could achieve his aims without even firing a shot. But on the other hand, we have to be very candid with the Ukrainians about the nature of the threat. That becomes difficult sometimes when it comes to sharing intelligence. At the end of the day, Shannon, we should be doing a lot more than what we're doing. That statement from Pentagon spokesman Kirby, that we've been looking at this for months. I was just out in Ukraine over a month ago, and they were not getting the weapons that they wanted. The entire sense, Shannon, was we can't provoke Putin. This was the sense from the White House. We can't do anything that's provocative. The thing the Ukrainians most need and want are surface-to-air missiles and anti-ship missiles, and they weren't getting them. And what's showing up now, I think, is too little, too late.
So to the idea of a provocation or the messaging based on what's being done right now, the New York Times writes this. It says there's a risk that Washington's messaging, which includes putting 8,500 troops on high alert for possible deployment to NATO's eastern frontier, could provoke the Kremlin further or at least be used to justify a more aggressive posture. On Tuesday, Dmitry Peskov, the Kremlin spokesman, said Moscow was watching NATO troop movements, quote, with profound concern. So how do we balance the messaging? We know that Russia is going to try to paint anything as a provocation that would justify action they may take in Ukraine.
Yeah, that's the exact wrong approach. And unfortunately, that's the approach the administration's been taking. What Putin respects is leverage and strength. We should have already had sanctions in place. Then we could pull them back if he de-escalates. We should have accelerated the lethal aid months ago, including the more sophisticated types that we could then pull back if Russia de-escalates. But right now, he's holding all of the cards, and we have none on the table. And on those 8,500 troops, remember, that's just part of an overall NATO response force, and it takes a unanimous consent of every NATO nation, all 30, to activate that force. And I just don't see that happening. Heck, Germany won't even allow overflight of any type of lethal aid, much less provide it, that the United States and the United Kingdom is providing. So we do not have unanimous consent with NATO right now on how to respond. And that's incredibly concerning, and I think that's a huge flaw in Biden's strategy.
Well, and we know the rest of the world is watching. This Economist piece says this, other potential aggressors would take note, too. The likelihood of China invading Taiwan would surely rise. The regimes in Iran and Syria would conclude they are freer to use violence with impunity. If might is right, more of the world's disputed borders would be fought over. They say if this isn't handled correctly, that's the fallout.
Well, that's absolutely right. And Putin has long stated that he intends to put the Soviet Union back together again. You know, there's a lot of Americans asking, why should I care about all of this? And that's why. It's not to the point that we put American boots on the ground in Ukraine, but we can do a lot more to support the Ukrainians. And I do not think Putin's going to stop with Ukraine in his quest to challenge the United States. And just next week, Shannon, he's going to be standing side by side with Xi at the opening ceremony of the Olympics. Oh, by the way, he invaded Ukraine last time during the Sochi Olympics and Georgia before that during the 2008 Beijing Olympics. So dictators love these big propaganda platforms. And if we do not respond in a strong, forceful way for deterrence, not promising to respond tough after the fact, but deterrence up front is what we need and we're not getting.
Yeah, the debate over sanctions, and we know you guys have work on the Hill about that. That conversation continues. Congressman, thank you very much. Great to see you.
Shannon, they blocked the sanctions on Nord Stream just last week. It just, again, wrong approach.
Yeah, a couple weeks ago in the Senate, Democrats responsible for that one now saying they want to find a bipartisan path forward. So let's see if they can. Thank you again.
All right. Yeah, thanks, Shannon.